Folks, we're privileged to have Amanza Walton-Desir, the Shadow Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation. Amanza has her legal training, and believe it or not, I don't know why some people stay quiet on these things, but Amanza has her legal training in these very issues that we're talking about today. She has a master's in maritime law, and her focus was offshore drilling and the environment. Believe it or not, Amanza, welcome to our broadcast.
Thank you. Thank you, Sharon, and good night to your In the Ring viewers.
Excellent. Manzo, now, we are in the throes of the decision of the High Court in this, as is popularly called, the Exxon Insurance Case. Justice Sandil Kissoon decision, I think, is going to be talked about, is going to be studied at University of Guyana and in the region and internationally for a long time to come. He was definitive, leaving no room for speculation in this judgment. Get insurance now. I'm gonna get to parts of his judgment in just a little bit, but give us an overview, your first reaction.
My first reaction is that really it is a very important decision that was handed down by Justice Kissoon. There is a level of vindication that I feel because we have, as an opposition, for years been saying this about the EPA, that they are derelict in their duty towards the people of Guyana. And you see the judge basically bearing us out in that regard. Very very scathing judgment as it relates to the EPA and their lack of protection of the interests of the people of Guyana. And so I think, as you've rightly said, it is a decision that is going to be studied because it certainly is a landmark decision that we have had grace our legal landscape. I want to say, as I've said just now, I want to reiterate that this is what we as the opposition have been saying for years. We have pointed out how this PPC administration, Barra Jagdeo and his cabal, have decimated the EPA. They've stripped it of all of the expertise necessary to perform the functions that it needs to perform, particularly in the context of us now being an oil producing nation. And this is the result. So I think it's a good day for the judicial system. It's a good day for our jurisprudence. And certainly we'll be monitoring it closely because the Attorney General has indicated his intention to appeal, which is something I'm sure we'll discuss as we move along.
Thanks very much, Amanza. Let me get to a portion of the decision handed down by the High Court yesterday via Justice Sandil Kissoon. He says that the agency, this is the Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA, sought refuge in silence, avoidance, concealment, and secrecy, notwithstanding the grave potential danger and consequences to the state and citizens if an event occurred at the Liza Phase 1 petroleum production facilities in the Stabroek offshore Guyana. In the absence of such financial assurances mandated by their permit, which company, and more than which company, which government allows this, Amanza? Talk to us.
Sure. Look, what the judge has done there in terms of his referencing the opacity and the lack of transparency, he has, I think, succinctly summarized, he has summarized in essence, rather, the modus operandi of the PC administration under Irfan Ali and Bar Jagdeo. Look, I think it is important that we set the context here. You have historically, since there has been oil exploration, you have had accidents. You had the Exxon Valdez, you had the Deepwater Horizon, and indeed a number of oil spills across the world that has resulted in hundreds of billions of dollars. Deepwater Horizon, the settlement was somewhere in the vicinity of 160 billion US dollars. So The question that we have to ask ourselves is, why do we believe that we are exempt from such an occurrence? And if we accept that we are not exempt from such an occurrence, then I think it behooves us, it behooves the government to put mechanisms in place to protect our interests. Now, mind you, Article 149J of the Constitution imposes on the government a duty to preserve the environment for present and future generations. And it goes on to vest certain rights of Guyanese as it relates to our enjoyment of the environment. So you have history indicating to us that there's a possibility of this happening. You have a government that has been that has under our constitution certain constitutional duties. And then you have, by way of legislation, an agency that the people of Guyana, through their elected representatives in the National Assembly, would have vested with certain powers and authorities to look after their interests as it relates to our environment. And that agency is the EPA, intended to be an autonomous body that would be, as it were, the watchdog for the environment. So we're setting the context here. So you have the probability of accidents happening. You have a government that has certain duties under the Constitution. You have a body vested with legislative authority on behalf of the people of Guyana to safeguard their interests. And then you have a company whose fiduciary obligation is first and foremost to its shareholders to maximize their profits, as it were. And so our quarrel as the people of Guyana lies with the government of Irfaan Ali and Barjagdio, because we are the ones to whom they owe this fiduciary obligation pursuant to our constitutional rights. We are the people who have vested through our elected representatives and assented to by the executive, the Environmental Protection Agency, with the powers and responsibilities of overseeing our interests in the context of the environment. And so I think it has to be very clear the context in which we are operating. So what has happened is that you have a judgment that has been handed down saying, you, the EPA, you have been derelict in your duty towards the people of Guyana and towards the environment. What you have is a government now disagreeing with that. And so the indication from the Attorney General leaves the people of Guyana to wonder, whose interests are they really serving? Because if you have a court saying, look, EPA, as you are duty bound to do, you have to look after and to safeguard the rights of the citizens of Guyana. And you have an Attorney General who is saying, oh no, we will appeal that. Of all the judgments and all the cases for
Well, I
appeal,
was coming there.
why this one?
Circling back to the judgment again, here is Justice Sandil Kissoon saying, to safeguard the people that vote for PP, that didn't vote for them, to safeguard one Guyana. We could go bankrupt if you have an event, an oil spill, or what, the several other possibilities, that disasters that could happen in that sector. To safeguard the people, this is what you must do. Exxon and appealing, the government appealing. Amanza, this is bizarre.
Bizarre doesn't even begin to describe it. And you've made a point. Exxon is not appealing this judgment. It is the government of Guyana appealing a judgment that says that the EPA is derelict. Instead of focusing on strengthening the environmental watchdog, Anil Nandlal and his crew are going down the road of litigating against the interests of the people of Guyana. And this is what has to be made clear. A lot of people are going for Exxon and laying the blame at Exxon. As Guyanese citizens, we expect our government to operate in our interests.
As the regulator.
As they are required to do. The EPA, as an autonomous agency, is expected to act as the regulator and to do all that is necessary to protect the interests of the environment and the people of Guyana. So instead of doing that, what has happened? The EPA has now stopped following the science. They have stopped following the research. They have stopped following the historical indications that these oil spills are possible. And they're now a political lackey. And they're taking directives from Anil Nandlal and the likes of Barajagdio. And so this has to worry us as Guyanese. Look, Sherrod, we cannot begin to we can't understate the importance of us having these protections in place. $160 billion or thereabouts was the settlement figure for the Deepwater Horizon. Now, what the court is saying is this: you must give a parent company guarantee. And I heard Barajagdio today trying to dance and to kerfuffle the people of Guyana about unlimited insurance. That is not what the court said. And if you read the judgment, the court was very keen to point out that what the judge is saying is that there must be, in addition to the insurance, the parent company guarantee. To put simply, Sherrod, you have a son. You are his parent. What you are saying is, if my son does something and it causes harm, I, as the parent, am saying that I will stand the liability for the harm that he has caused. That is all that is. And it is not a concept that is new or foreign to business. So for Barajagdio to be on a press conference misleading the people of Guyana is a shame, is an absolute disgrace, and he ought to be ashamed of himself. It is simply saying that, look, as your son Sherrod, he may only have this amount of money, but the damages from his activity could exceed this amount. I will step in and I will cover that amount. That is what the guarantee is about, very simply. So to come to bring this argument about unlimited insurance and to try to kerfuffle people, unacceptable. The other point to note, Sherrod, is that when you look at the totality of the circumstances, you realize how vulnerable we are as a nation. Now, should an oil spill occur, you're not only talking about the cleanup, you're also talking about the costs attached to the degradation of the environment. You're also talking about the costs attached to possible transboundary pollution. So not only, if God forbid an oil spill should occur in our operations, the liability for damage to Trinidad, to Suriname, to as far as Curacao, we could possibly, depending on the scale and magnitude of this spill, be responsible for all of that. And so for the government to turn a blind eye and to pretend as if history is not replete with examples of this happening and to basically abandon the people of Guyana is unacceptable, and they have to be called out for it.
Correct is right. Correct is right. It looks as though MP, that we've seen this movie again. We see Jadjo in the past saying, if we only cede some of this territory to Venezuela, belongs to us as Guyanese. We ain't ceding nothing. If we only cede some of our interests and some of our rights in this contract to ExxonMobil, right? Why are they always so eager not to protect Guyanese interests?
Because the Barajagdio and Irfan Ali and their likes have never been about the people of Guyana. And I think if this doesn't demonstrate it clearly, I don't know what else will. You are appealing a judgment, and you have not been able to give any credible reason as to why you're doing it. There is no commitment to strengthen the EPA as the environmental watchdog. There is no commitment on their part to do better in the future, but they are litigating and appealing a matter against the interests of Guyanese people. And so I don't know what else has to happen for us to understand that Barry Jagdeo, Irfan Ali, they never cared about the people of Guyana. They care about their friends, their family, and as we say, their favorites. And so they would sell us up the river if it meant that they could get a few dollars more. And this is why they are unfit to hold the seat of government and to govern this nation. And look, LGE is coming up, and we must say to them loud and clear that you are unfit to govern in our interest, because you've clearly demonstrated you don't have our interest at heart. And then when the national elections come, we must vote them out of government. These are the people that will sell our birthright for a few dollars more. And we have to absolutely resist them. And we have to get about the work and the task of rebuilding our institutions. Look, the EPA had the most qualified head it has ever had in Vincent Adams. They fired him to put a disgraced EPA head that was fired from the EPA. Look at the issue with the EITI, the transparency, the extractive transparency program. They fired a qualified head to put one of their political lackeys. And now we have defaulted on our reporting and we face disqualification from the program. You have seen what they have did with the Public Accounts Committee. They have everything that this PPPC does. It is a pattern of criminality.
Amanza, I'm happy you're on that thread, because when I did law, and I didn't follow it, I graduated. We didn't follow it in Eugene second year, like some other folks. We talked about viewed in isolation. Some things may not make sense, but when taken together, when taken as a whole,
when the facts are taken as a whole, what emerges is a pattern of callousness, of criminality, and a lack of care for the people of Guyana on the part of Barry Jagdeo and Irfan Ali and their cabal. And that is as clear as day. Listen, I have gotten so many calls saying, MP, explain this to us. How is it that the government is appealing this? Is the government now standing against the people of Guyana in this decision? And so
that is reality.
has to come and explain to the people of Guyana, how is this in their best interests? Because inquiring minds want to know. And so, Sharon, I believe that the upcoming LGE, they must be sent a very clear message that we see you, we understand you. This farce about one Guyana will not work, because when the rubber reaches the road, you have never been about, nor are you about now, the interests of the people of Guyana, and we will hold you accountable for it.
Very well. Amanza, as you're wrapping up, you are articulating those things that, when taken together, gives you that pattern. These are the folks who say they love transparency and all these other things. We just fell 26 places in terms of our treatment of journalists, and press freedom.
Yes, I noted that. I noted that. And so 26 places is not one or two. This is 26 places. And Sharon, if you look at it, what you are seeing is a type of governance that you saw pre-2015, but far more dangerous now because of the amount of oil that is, the oil money that is in the economy. That is all you're seeing. It is the same old, the same old corrupt cabal that keeps us racially divided so that we could be fighting each other while they make off like bandits to the bank with our money, with our patrimony, with the patrimony of future generations. And we as Guyanese, we have to wake up and we have to hold them accountable. And when we talk about the facts being taken together, Sharon, you see here now why it is important that we do not give up the fight for a clean voters list.
Correct. Correct.
Because what they will do is that they will gerrymander and they will corrupt the electoral process to get into office and to try to win an election before the first ballot is cast.
Hmm.
And then they will use that to say, oh, we won an election, which is an event, but use that as the opportunity to continue government and to continue to rape and rob and pillage and plunder this country and our patrimony. And so we have to wake up and we have to begin to be vigilant. We have to begin to be vigilant. As I always say, we gotta hold a folk and we gotta watch them. We have to watch them because you see glaringly that they are not for the people of Guyana. They've never been about our interests. And so it is time for us to hold them accountable.
Watch them indeed. Watch them indeed. Amanza Walton-Desir, our shadow Minister for Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation. Thank you for spending this time with us, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, Sherrod. Thanks.